So I've been involved for a long time with the transhumanist movement, and you can loosely describe that as the people who question the human condition and think that we could probably improve this by using technology and rational thinking. Our lifespans are rather limited. Why not engineer so we have better, healthier lifespans? Our brains are not that great. Besides the normal training and methods we have, what about improving the function of the brain? What about linking ourselves up to computers to be able to do new things? Our genome has a lot of awful stuff in it. Could we fix that? Since the 90s, on one hand, it's shocking how fast things have been moving in some domains. While in other domains we expected things to move fast, it haven't happened much. So on one hand, our understanding of aging has exploded. Back in the 90s, it was still very uncertain what aging even was. Now we have a pretty detailed molecular model, and in the lab at least, we have ways of extending lab animal lifespans quite significantly. But moving that into a pill we can take or part of healthcare turns out to be much more of a slog than we had ever expected. On the other hand, the internet, it was kind of predicted by transhumanists in the early 90s that this is going to be a big deal. But we totally underestimate the importance of smartphones and how that has wired us all up, not just in the rich world, but also in the developing countries. So as a transhumanist, I become rather humble about our ability to predict the future. I think we can actually see that, yes, statistically speaking, we have grown richer, more knowledgeable, healthier, and I don't think that trend is going to break unless we have a huge civilization-wide disaster, which is actually why a lot of transhumanists these days are working rather hard on reducing global catastrophic and existential risks, because they could spoil the party. But I think in general, the future looks very bright and also rather weird. If you think about all the strangeness that is going on right now with fake news, Bitcoin mining, a lot of complicated new science done using the internet, many of these things were absolutely impossible to predict just a decade or two ago. Because many of the most revolutionary technologies these days are ideas. We can predict the gadgets. We can make a pretty good plot of how computing performance is going to increase. We can say a lot of things about how to go to space and the physics of rockets. But when will the next really clever algorithm for social media, or something like social media, show up? That is absolutely impossible to predict, because if we knew about it, we would already have that idea. So the future, in many ways, looks more unpredictable than ever, but in a rather good way. And I do think that it's actually worth waiting for. I'm actually signed up for cryonics. That is the idea that if you're dying, at least you can try to save yourself by freezing yourself. So now you can be stored in liquid nitrogen, and maybe for decades, maybe for centuries, and hopefully one day medicine can revive you. This is of course a total gamble, and I'd rather live a long life just by not dying. But as an extra little safeguard, I think it's worthwhile. The probability of it working might not be enormous, but I think it's good enough that it's actually worth paying a little bit to do. And I actually expect that the future is going to be great. Because if you think back about our history as a species, in what century should you want to live? Well, it might be glorious to think about the Renaissance or some interesting part of a Gilded Era or something like that. But actually the toilets in the Victorian era were not very good, and the Renaissance was actually filled of plague and war. In many ways, we right now live best, not just in the rich world, but even in the developing world. This is actually the highest standard of life ever, and it's pretty likely that this can continue, which might mean that if you actually want to wish where in history you are, you should probably wish for relatively far in the future.